Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Big Chief channel. Joining you today is myself, your host, Aaron Lee, as well as a unique guest. Now, I know that every time we say, every time we have a guest on, we call them unique, but it is truly unique to have people who excel in their fields, and today it is no different. Today we have someone who makes money move, and we'll be talking about how that person shares his experiences within the field of finance. So without further ado, let's have him join us in the studio tonight. He is none other than Brian. Hello, Brian. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Hey man, you look like you just came back from work. You busy making money
Yeah,
move tonight, huh?
yes, yes. So,
Well,
thanks for having me on the show.
no problem, man. It is an honor to have a young guy like you to share his experiences. The thing is, tonight on the Big Chief channel, we want to talk about the generation gap in your field, and we will be talking about that in a bit. But before that, I'd like to, for the sake of our audience, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself so that we can get to know you better?
Hi, guys. My name is Brian. I'm currently working as CFO slash finance manager slash for slash operations person at the Pacific Capital Group. I've been
Wow.
working in finance for about 5 years now, and currently I'm I've been quite active in this field. As during my day-to-day job, I assist clients with funding for especially clients, as well as
Wow.
managing cash flows for my company.
That's awesome, man. The thing is, as you look pretty young for to be a CFO of a company. Do you mind sharing how young you are?
I'm about 30.
Wow, wow, wow. And the thing is, being your age as a CFO, I'm sure there's quite a bit of conflict with, like, handling staff who are older than you, right? I'm sure. Do you get staff who are jealous of your position?
I would say that, well, if they are jealous about my position, they don't show it. So I'm not
Right.
really, um, and and also it's a family business, so it's not, it doesn't really, how you say, uh, I mean they all understand.
I see, I see.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there are a lot of horror stories where people try to sabotage and just to get the position that they're looking for, right? And that is quite scary. But anyway, do you mind to share a little bit about finance in your field? Like, how do you even make money move? And that is quite you know a field that is not everyone specializes in.
Um, for finance, the way I see it is, the way you make money move, as you say, is actually to just liaise with financiers, like bankers, especially for a small company, or any corporate uh, group, right? You want
Right.
to have a good financial backing, so you need to be in touch with your bankers, and
I see.
um, have you need to, firstly, you need to make sure that your company has at least 6 months of
Right.
expenditure saved up.
Right.
So you want to always plan uh, at least 1 year, 6 months, or at least a year in advance,
Right. But what
in
if,
terms
let's
of,
say,
yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but what if, let's say, if you are running because a lot of youngsters, right, they are quite entrepreneurial nowadays, and they want to start their own businesses, and they want to be their own boss, right? So for younger folks, right, what would you say is the correct approach to it? Because it is quite impossible to get finance backing, right? For, let's say, if you're starting a small company for yourself. Let's say I'm starting a popcorn stand, right? And it's just gonna be in a kiosk or something like that. um, how do you even get financing for something like that? I assume you can't go to VCs, right?
Yeah, I assume that you can't go to VCs. I mean, as I see it, most companies starting from that level, starting small, right? They usually use savings from their previous job, or they either sold an asset or car to finance their business.
Right.
And um, in terms of getting seed funding, what I mean, they can always tap into the natural market, which for the banks is mainly your family, friends, and people that you know, for
Mm-hmm.
funding, for additional funding. But usually, what you do is that um, you either obtain seed funding from your previous job that you saved up for, or you sold a capital item or asset.
I see. So what if, okay, so let's say I'm a business, and I've done all of that. I've gotten the seed funding. I've run it for a while now. And let's say I'm 5 years into the business. I've made, let's say, 300,000 ringgit. And then I finally feel like, okay, maybe now is the time I can approach, uh, some people to get more funding to expand my business further. What are the steps to actually attain that? Like, you can't just show up at the bank, right? I assume. Hello, hello. Whoops.
Oops.
Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there.
Did you catch
I
what I said just
understand.
now? Yeah.
So your question is, how do you obtain more funding once you reach a certain stage? Let's say you have 300,000.
Right.
Um, what you can do is that you can either start pitching to potential investors. You don't have to approach your VCs. You can approach any other businesses, or if you have any networking in the industry, you can obviously approach a high net worth individual to pump in money.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what you can do is that you can, it all depends on the project and how you, and the nature of your business. For example, if you're a if you're a let's take your example where you're
Yeah.
a lemonade seller, or a fruit store seller. What you
Mm-hmm.
can do is that you can usually get at the level where your business is generating about 300,000. You can usually approach the banks, especially personal banking or SME banking, and they usually, depending on your gearing and your assets, they can lend you a clean loan for
Ah.
you to hire more staff and to expand your operations. Or alternatively, what you can do is that in order to expand your current cash pool, right, you can always um, approach um, like business networks that,
Right.
for example, Aaron, you mentioned to me that you are part of this Catholic business network or something,
Yeah, there are
where you
few.
can,
Yeah.
yeah, you can approach those associations, and they have their own um, financial fund whom they give entrepreneurs
Right.
to
Right.
in order to expand their business. Yeah.
Right. I think for youngsters, right, the thought of getting finance for their business is just too scary because you're scared that okay, if I approach the bank, then there's like a huge process to go through, and I have to present these documents and stuff like that. And if I go through VCs, then there are shows like Shark Tank and was it Dragon? It
Dragon.
just looks too scary, right? Because like you get roasted on the spot. And, oh, I run a small lemonade stand. Can you please fund my company for like 5% equity? And then they're like, oh, no, no, no. They try to roast you on the spot. So it gets a bit scary with all of this, the media depicting all of this. But from what you say, I think it's not really that scary. There are a lot of ways to go through it. Like you mentioned, there are business
Yeah.
networks as well. There's also um, something called FMM. Is it father mother money?
Yes.
That is the natural approach. Of course, you can use your family's assets or the assets that you have obtained and stuff like that, right? So
Yeah.
there are a lot of ways to go about it. It's just you got to plan for it and not just assume that it's scary. Um,
Well, in the old days, right?
mhm.
Usually the banks, such as Public Bank, Alliance Bank, they're quite traditional. They will lend money to you based on your assets that you have. So
Mm-hmm.
I will assume 300,000. You can actually buy a small property somewhere, and then and from that you can actually cash out some of the loan. You can rent out the property, and the cash flow from that property you can use to fund your business. So
Right.
I can imagine 300,000 you can buy probably for your business, a small studio, or
Mm-hmm.
a commercial retail space. You can rent it out, and hopefully get some consistent cash flow. So the main thing is, as a small business, is to ensure that you diversify your cash flows.
Right.
So so um, if you want to get more funding, the best way, I mean, the more traditional way is to lend based on the assets that you have,
Right. Right.
the collateral that you have, the land, the office units. But
Yeah. Yeah.
currently, the financial markets, especially in Malaysia, have expanded quite significantly. So you can also get funding through peer-to-peer lending,
Ah.
through obviously private equity, but that's for bigger firms.
Right.
Or if you manage to pitch yourself well, you can get a VC to come in. But traditionally, most businessmen they usually get a clean loan or personal loan, and then as they expand further, they'll probably try to get more assets in order to get a loan from the banks easily.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now I'd like to talk about flip the switch a little bit, and I'd like to talk about more about the mindset of the people, right, that you deal with. Now, I assume that when in your field of work that you have dealt with clients who are younger or and also clients who are older, what is the general mindset difference of the two when it comes to finance?
Well, the general mindset for uh for the two, I'm gonna categorize them into baby boomers and millennials, as well as Gen Z. So
Yeah.
for baby boomers, they are more traditional. So they usually um, lend based on collateral. In those days, 20 or 30 years back, most banks they usually lend based on the assets that the firm has, and any physical assets, for example, land, office units, as well as equipment. Whereas these days, for millennials and Gen Z, they're more tech savvy, so they're more open to the idea of uh, alternative lending by approaching VCs and as well as private equity, as
Mm-hmm.
well as they're more eager to use online platforms to get
Ah,
funding as well.
I see, I see.
So last year, Bank Negara issued four digital licenses for four new digital banks. One of them is Grab. So Grab partnered with Singtel, and they
Ah,
managed to get a license for a digital bank. The rest are a few others.
believe Touch and Go as well, right?
Yeah, I believe Touch and Go as well. And what they do is that with this online platforms, right? Usually you can see most of the lenders are millennials as well as Gen Zs who tap into these sources of funding, whereas
Right,
the the older generation they're still more old school, and they look at the banks.
right. But I've seen quite a bit of Gen Zs who go through the Touch and Go. You can actually lend money through their platform, and they will usually lend based on how much you say your income is. So if let's say you say your monthly income is 3,000, they will lend you 3,000 as a maximum. But what a lot of Gen Zs they do is that they purposely put their monthly income as the maximum, and then they
Yeah.
lend the maximum, and they can't pay back the money, and they get blacklisted. What do you think of that?
I mean, for Gen Z, obviously, young people make mistakes. I mean, the 10 years he was a millennials who did same thing.
Right.
But millennials, I think, recorded the highest number of bankruptcy rates for credit card, and I think that was about 5 to 10 years back. So
Right.
it's not surprising that for Gen Zs they have they also come to financial difficulties because they are obviously they are young. But
Mm-hmm.
I think with the onset of online platforms like Touch and Go and Grab, I think these platforms allow them more flexibility in terms of financing,
Fair
and they
enough.
won't be and their credit score won't be affected that much as compared to traditional means of funding via credit cards and loans, because with Grab and Touch and Go, right? They are. I don't think their credit score. I don't think their internal credit score is synced with the rest of the banks, because
Right.
as I remember, while working as a short stint as a banker at UOB, the banks have internal system called CITOS, where they actually, um, it's a database for all the bankers to
Right.
tap into their credit score for all the customers. So
Ah,
to my knowledge, Touch and Go and Grab are not yet integrated into that system.
I
Correct
see, I
me
see,
if I'm
I
wrong.
see. Now,
But for Gen Z, there's more opportunities to get funding.
I see, I see. Now, as we pass the halfway mark of the show, I'd just like to welcome in the audience, those who have just come in, especially those of them who are in the chat. Christine, welcome in. Snow, Anthony, Andrew Richards as well. Patricia, sorry if I missed anyone. Oh, Shen, Roxanne as well. So welcome in. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show. As I would like to ask you, Brian, a quick question. As we are on the topic of horror stories, do you have any personal horror stories that you've encountered yourself?
Any personal horror stories
Hmm.
related to financing?
Yeah, yeah.
I actually had one. I was working as one of my first jobs was as a uh, business banker at UOB.
Uh-huh.
And as a business banker, we dealt with a lot of SME customers. So some of the SME clients, we will usually have to travel to their premises, and there was a case where there was this client. I I got his number through cold calling. So I called a number of contacts
Right.
that my supervisor gave me, and he mentioned that he's a retail business. He sells shoes, and he's looking for short-term funding of about 500,000, a clean loan,
Okay.
in order to how you say, uh, in order to as some reserve for his inventory, because of the inventory cycle is what I mean, there was some uncertainty with the inventory cycle, so he needed some to show up his reserves. So when I got to his premises, right, um, what I saw was that he actually his business was actually on the roadside, and
Oh,
he was looking for financing based on his car, which, as you know, is a liability.
right.
And obviously, when we got there, he he wanted to he actually was pressured us into like giving him funding for his apparels based on his car, and it was an interesting experience because he seemed adamant that his car was, I mean, that the bank can charge his car and get funding based on that, even though it was a depreciating. I think it was
Value.
Toyota.
I see.
So then, um, halfway through our meeting with this client, uh, I'm not sure what happened. I think maybe he got tip off. He suddenly just he and his I think he and his two assistants, they quickly closed up their stand and they just left.
Wow.
And I was sitting there with my manager, just staring into space because there was no. I mean, he just
they,
left.
they just left you just like that.
Yeah,
Wow, that
yeah, he just
is
let me
that's
like
quite
that. Yeah.
interesting. I'm sure there is quite a lot of different type of people who maybe out of desperation, right? They try to cheat,
Yeah.
the banks to giving them a loan. Are there any cases where people just fly to a different state after they get fly to a different country after they get a loan?
Well, um,
Can you do
when I
that?
was working with the bank, there was no such case, thankfully. But I I heard that um, recently the I'm fortunately I've not heard of that case
Uh-huh.
personally, but I'm pretty sure that there are such cases. I would say that um, I had this client. I'm not gonna
Right.
give a name.
Of course.
She specializes in data management. So she actually have she actually has operation a big operation about 100 people. I mean, for it's considered big for SME.
Mm-hmm.
And what she does is that she actually hosts seminar in order to train staffs of and she most of her clients are bankers, so she actually uh, carries out seminars in order to train them on the on how to do IT and provide digital services to clients.
Mm-hmm.
So she's actually tied up with the Ministry for HR, and what she does is she provides IT training to in order to upgrade to upskill staff in banks and as well as
Ah.
small businesses. So what happened was that she wanted financing of up to uh, 50 million, and
Mm-hmm.
she approached us as because as we were corporate advisors and we had some contacts with the banks, and she mentioned that um, she was supposed to pay us an upfront fee, but in the end, we went through several meetings with her, and it turns out that and we knew this from one of her other advisors. She mentioned that actually they were getting money uh, fr- from from government sponsored for IT training and such, and their clients were mainly banks, but their cash flow was not so good. So for example, uh, I think right before a seminar, right,
Right.
they managed to get funding for in order to arrange a project, a training project, and then right after that they needed the money for a different project right after getting funding from the client. So the cash cycle is very short. Is I would say
Ah.
it's only a few hours.
Right. So it's kind of like, it looks good on paper, but after you dig more, there's more of the ugly side will come out, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
in a way, you're kind of like a investigator also lah. When it comes to financing, you have to do a lot of investigation behind a
yes,
lot of
definitely.
background checks. So as we are nearing the end of the show, I'd like to pose a question to the audience. If you guys have any questions regarding financing, now's the time to ask Brian. If not, then Brian, would you mind to share any words of wisdom you have just to wrap everything up for this session?
I mean that the theme is the generation gap in finance.
Mm-hmm.
I think the generation gap is dependent on on where you're at in your career. So obviously there are some boomers who are tech savvy, and there are some people in the younger generation who are not as savvy in tech.
Right.
So I would say the generation gap is more a career gap because as the most Gen Z and millennials we are currently in the uh, fresh grad to middle management position in the career ladder. So it's not so much uh, a generation gap, but uh, a gap in terms of career and experience. So I believe that the gap that you see in finance is mainly a function of uh, of where you at on where you are
Awesome.
at in the career ladder and your experience. Yeah.
Right, right. So think of it as where you are at instead of generalizing it into the generations and stuff like that, right? So
Yes.
thank you so much, Brian, for coming on, and we'd like to thank all the audience for tuning in as well. So once again, we are live every weekdays at 8:30 GMT plus 8. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe wherever you are in the big wide world. We hope that you have a lovely day, night, or evening ahead. Catch you guys next time. How? Bye bye.
Bye.